Welcome to our Yin practice. I am Andrea Clausen, and tonight, or morning, or afternoon, whenever you're listening, we are going to be diving into a practice with mantras. And so, how I would use a mantra for your practice, you might recite it with the breath, or you might hear what I say, and maybe you have a personal mantra and you want to use that, feel free to do so. So, make this your own practice. But I'll invite you to close the eyes and we'll get grounded first. Palms might flip down, eyes might soften. You might take an inhale in through the nose, open mouth exhale, and then taking that once more, breathing in through the nose and sighing it out. And then with the breath, the first mantra, you might think so on your inhale. And as you exhale, reciting hum. You might do this out loud or through the mind, whichever you prefer. It might be like this if you are doing it out loud. So, hum, so, hum. Or you might silently say to yourself as you inhale, so, and as you exhale through the nose, hum. Taking the next minute to find your version. Continuing to soften through the hands, softening through the jaw, melting shoulders away from the ears. As you continue the so hum mantra, it just means I am that. And if you are a pitta or a fellow, maybe overthinker, just releasing what that means if this is a new mantra to you. Just tuning in what comes to you when you sense, feel, hear, so hum. You are more than welcome to stick with that mantra throughout the postures, or I will invite you with some other mantras that are more affirmation-ish than a mantra in Sanskrit. And so your choice if you would like to stay with the so hum, if that is something that you're feeling deeply connected with, or I will give you some other options as we go throughout our practice. So we're going to start with our first posture, which is going to be a toe crunch. So with toe crunch, we have a few options here. You might curl the toes under and sink back, and this is your posture. You might have props ready to sit on because as we hold this for 3 minutes, you might be able to do it for a minute and then you want a little support. And so now I'm taking some of the weight on the block instead of me sitting all the way back onto my toes. As I continue to hold this, you might even flatten out the feet and just take a hero's pose and then using any support that you might like there. So feel free to find your version and finding your toe crunch, whether you want to take hero's pose, taking that toe squat for a few breaths. The mantra here, I soften, I surrender. I soften. I surrender. Now, as you continue to hold this is one that I usually will speak a little bit more during just because it gets intense. That fire builds up. And as we're holding, making sure you don't hold the breath, can you stay soft through everything? I'm about at my max capacity, and so I might flip into a hero's pose for the final couple minutes. And one of the reasons I like to invite you to change into a different posture is not being a martyr of your practice. So taking what you need so you can stay within your body. If it's so unbearable and you're jumping out of your skin, we're losing that point. That's past the healthy edge. Come back in to aversion and then find that breath. I soften, I surrender. And that might be a mantra you practice again and again and again. We'll be here for one more minute. I soften, I surrender. Last few deep breaths here. Then you might gently come out of it, maybe coming into that tabletop position, even tapping out the tops of the feet. And then you might make your way into a seated position if you're ready to move on to that next posture. We'll be taking a half butterfly. And so you might be sitting up on a prop. We'll extend that right leg out long. Now, for the half butterfly, you might take a bolster out in front of you or any props you have. It could be a pillow, anything that, even a chair would be great. And so taking that straight out in front, sometimes I take half butterfly over that leg. Today we're going to go straight out. And then you're going to fold forward any amount so you feel that support underneath you. And then taking this first minute to find what works for you. And then as you're settling in, finding that breath, connecting to that stillness. And then a mantra on this side, I receive what I need. I receive what I need. Often that pitta dosha in Ayurveda, we can struggle with receiving. So can you take from this posture and receive what you need? Find the support that will help you soften. I receive what I need. Softening here for one more minute. And then exhale, slowly rolling up. Maybe taking those hands back behind you, turning the head side to side. And then when you feel ready, we'll transition to that other side. So maybe extending that left leg out long. And then finding your version here on the second side, knowing that the props might be closer, they might be farther away, adjusting them as needed. And then folding forward. And then just tuning in for this first minute. What needs to shift? For me, I'm just observing how my hamstring on the extended leg feels much tighter than the other side. And it's just an observation. And so it's telling me that, hey, I might need to stretch here. I also don't always demo on that side. So it's just talking to me. And a mantra here could be I release what I no longer need to carry. I release what I no longer need to carry. Maybe even envisioning putting it down, releasing your grip on whatever it is that you can finally set down. Continuing to soften through your shoulders. One more minute here, releasing what you no longer need to carry. And we'll slowly exhale as we press up. Maybe taking those hands back behind again, any little stretches. through the neck, opening through that heart space. And then we're going to be coming into melting heart. So now we're going to be working a little bit more with that back of the heart space. And so options here. So again, depending on the floor you might have underneath your knees, you could have a blanket resting. You might walk those hands out in front of you. They might rest up on a bolster. They might not. You might turn the bolster so your forehead is resting on a bolster for support. Now, for me, elbows sometimes down, elbows off the floor, arms extended. This feels okay, but as I go on, I might need to have that bolster handy, and this be a version I transition into with the elbows down and my forehead supported. So as you find your energy here, go ahead and sink into the version for you. Those hips might be over the knees, but they don't have to be perfect alignment here in Yin. And then a mantra here, which is a great one for this posture. I expand into spaciousness. So feeling that expansive energy from your fingertips moving all the way up the arms, down through the spine, down through the legs, and then out through the feet, finding that expansive energy. And then having that energy ground and anchor you. As we continue to hold this pose, child's pose is a great alternative. Connecting into that breath. I expand into spaciousness. About 2 more deep breaths here. And then you might make your way into a child's pose, a little cat-cow, finding some gentle movement here to soften through that low back. And then we'll transition into a Sphinx posture next. And so an option for Sphinx, you might have a bolster, and you can have those forearms over the bolster, and then the bolster is just resting onto the upper belly. You can also just let the belly rest onto the earth. And so whichever version feels best to you, I'm going to take it over the bolster today just because I've done a lot of Sphinx earlier in my day as I was reading. And so this feels just nice, it's supportive. And this mantra is also supportive. Supportive being, I trust in the unfolding of my life. So finding that trust, finding that unfolding. Once you have found your Sphinx, if this does not feel good, you can always come down to the belly, letting the forehead rest on those hands, and even just having a bolster underneath, this can be a nice little back expansion as well. But the eyes might soften or stare softly down towards the floor. And in yin, it's often thought of it's okay if those shoulders creep up by the ears. You don't have to have them pulled down and back. And then find that breath. Continuing to relax through the limbs, finding that deep breath. And as you're taking a few more breaths in this posture, because these are shorter practices, and this can be done seasonally. And depending on the season that it is as you're viewing this, you might tune in. Do you need Shavasana right now? And if that is the case, feel free to take one. If you are craving one more posture that will serve as a Shavasana and you want to do a little legs up the wall, you might find your way into that position. You could also just take a block underneath the low back or a blanket or a pillow and elevate the legs. Or maybe you want a combination of a hip opener and chest opener and you want to take a Supta Baddha Konasana. I'm going to transition into that one because that is what my body is saying to take to demo today and what I need. And so you might make your way out of Sphinx, taking those forearms down to the earth, pressing into that tabletop once more, taking any movement or stillness. And so that Supta Baddha Konasana here is going to be with that bolster, if you have one, right at the low back, laying over the top, soles of the feet together, knees can open, blocks can go underneath the upper thighs, and then those arms might open out to a T. And then if you're in another variation, feel free to settle in. And we're going to connect back with that So Hum mantra once more. So you might inhale in through the nose and silently repeat So. On your exhale, hum. Taking that a few more times. Inhale, So. Exhale, hum. Then you might inhale through your nose and just open mouth exhale. Releasing your tension in the body one last time. And if you have a sankalpa, you might silently repeat that 3 times and then resting into that stillness of Shavasana. Starting to deepen into your breath, wiggling fingers or toes, turning the head left to right. And then you might roll to a side, your right side, if you have a more restorative day ahead of you. Left side, if you have a more active day, and just pausing there to take a breath. And then we'll roll up to a seated position when you're ready to seal off our practice by taking our palms together up above our heads, bringing them down to your third eye, trusting your intuition, bringing your hands to your lips, speaking your truth, bringing your hands to heart center, knowing yourself. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Bowing in so much gratitude. Thank you all.